These headphones borrow a lot from the Sony WH-1000 XM5, except for the very bizarre naming conventions. Sony decided that enough was enough and they were going to make product names that are a little bit easier to roll off the tongue. Awesome. And with this change comes a whole host of other changes under the hood. For example, inside we see the V1 chip that helps with the ANC processing. We also see 40mm drivers and rather familiar looking controls on the back of the ear cups. The ear pads are a little bit wider and slightly deeper, which is great if you have a larger head. Just like they are on most of Sony's other wireless options, the touch controls in the back follow a familiar scheme. Swiping up turns the volume up. Swiping forward, track forward, double tap, pause, and cupping gives you the pass-through. You will appreciate the fact that you can connect to these via a number of different methods. For example, Bluetooth 5.2 with multi-point allows you to use several different source devices without going through the rigmarole of pairing each one each time. For those audio purists of you out there, you will appreciate that the Sony ULT Wear actually supports LDAC as well as SBC and AAC. You can also use the 3.5mm port on the bottom to connect wired. Unfortunately, these don't have any USB-C audio, which is a bit of a drag now that more and more headphones are starting to move that way. And now that a lot of smartphones don't have a headphone jack, this is going to be something that's going to be a little bit more important as time goes on. The battery is actually pretty decent. We subjected this to our torture test and it came out with 32 hours and 35 minutes. Not too shabby. This is a couple weeks worth of commutes or about a full week's worth of listening at your desk. You know, give or take a few hours. The microphone is okay. We found no fault with the mic samples that we collected in the lab. However, it's when you take these out of the lab where things start to get messy. These don't reject noise incredibly well, specifically wind noise. Though they do have a lot of wind screens, and that's a tech that is borrowed from the WH-1000 XM5s, for whatever reason we found that they just don't perform quite as well. But then again, these are Bluetooth headphones. They're only going to work so well. As far as noise cancellation goes, these are pretty decent as they are able to effectively attenuate almost 26 decibels or greater depending on what frequency you're listening to. It's really only under 80 hertz that you run into problems, but again, there's really not a lot of your music under that. These are going to be really, really good for a commute or an airplane ride, especially the longer you listen. And owing to the really deep ear cups and the amount of material in between you and the outside world, these actually isolate on their own exceptionally well. But unfortunately, that brings us to the Achilles heel of these headphones, the sound quality. Unfortunately, we were just not able to get these to sound the way they probably should have. Sony's ULT Power Sound line makes their name on the ULT button, right here shown in the foil holographic letters. What this button does is essentially it is a bass boost. Pressing it once brings you to the ULT 1 setting, which launches you to about 20 decibels too much. The ULT 2 setting, the max settings, actually pushes the bass and sub bass off of our charts. The long and short of it is that there is so much bass in here that even MDAX, which is a lot more tolerant of that, started to take a pretty good hit to sound quality. And that's not ideal. This might be less of a problem if there weren't some underemphasis in the highs, and that's just not the case here. So most of your listening will sound pretty dominated by kicks and toms, and a lot of echo effects that are probably not something you want to be hearing all the time. Now, you could use the Sony Headphones Connect app in order to equalize this quite a bit, but even when we took our hand at it, we found ourselves using the bright preset and then making it even brighter to match our tastes. This is a set of headphones that requires a lot of tinkering if you want the most out of it.